Hola, les habla Lorena Mora-Mowry, celebrando el mes de la herencia hispana, tomando la oportunidad de compartir las historias de las latinas, de hoy, que están marcando la diferencia, no solo en sus comunidades, sino en todos los Estados Unidos. Con nosotros tenemos a Gladys Santiago. Ella es una latina empresaria de organizaciones sin fines de lucro, escritora, ella es voluntaria. Ella hace 30 años tuvo una visión estratégica de administración. Ella fue la primera latina certificada con el CFRE, que es certificado Fundraising Executive International. No solamente eso, fue la primera latina miembro de la Junta del Distrito Escolar de Cleveland. Y también fue parte del National Council of Greatest City School. Y solamente estoy leyendo un poquito porque es una famosa escritora. En el 2024, ella se ganó We Are All Human Foundation, la seleccionó a Gladys con la historia para su serie de libros nacionales, como Hispanic Star Raising. Oh my God, y estoy leyéndolo entre líneas porque tienes tanta información. Cuéntame de Gladys, de tu inicio, ¿por qué? ¿Qué es la parte cultural que te ha motivado todo este tiempo a ser lo que tú eres hoy?
Mi abuelo era uno de los miembros de Operation Bootstrap, el esfuerzo de los Estados Unidos trayendo trabajadores de Puerto Rico en el 1940. Trabajó 30 años acá y después papi y mami se migraron para Cleveland, Ohio. Ellos son, ellos tienen ¿cómo se dice? El gran historia son migrantes aquí en los Estados Unidos. Sí, yo sé que tenemos el citizenship, pero también la historia de trabajar fuerte y tener su meta y también trabajar fuerte no solo para ellos, pero para nosotros. Yo soy uno de 6 muchachos, hijos y hijas. Y también como la hija mayor, en la cultura puertorriqueña tiene una posición importante, no solamente para cuidar lo demás, pero también mi padre, cuando ellos, se envejecieron, no puedo decir la palabra, pero, cuando
Can
entraron
say it in English because the people that can see us, they speak both languages, okay?
okay, when they got older,
Pero tú tenías mucha responsabilidad como la hija mayor, ¿verdad? Como ser un ejemplo de tus hermanos. ¿Tú sentías eso?
Sí, porque también en la comunidad, mami y papi era uno de los fundadores, dentro como 20 otras parejas en fundada en establishing the first Hispanic Catholic Church in the Diocese of Cleveland. And so con eso hay nosotros somos uno de la primera familia, ¿verdad? So mucho responsabilidad eso, ¿verdad? Para mami, que siempre quería ser maestra, y papi siempre quería ser ingeniero, pero tenía que trabajar lo que podían trabajar aquí. Pero papi sí trabajó fuerte y 38 años en una fábrica en the East Side, y mami ama la casa, pero también cuidó muchacho, pero siempre tenía su sueño para nosotros. Y yo pues tenía sueño de ir a la universidad. Me gradué la primera en la familia y, y también después de graduarme empecé en trabajar en the for-profit world, but then an opportunity became available for me to work in the Latino community as the assistant director of the Hispanic Community Forum, the first assistant director of the Hispanic Community Forum. And I just fell in love. I just fell in love with fundraising and program development.
Gladys, you have like a motto, como una palabra que es Unleash Vitality Now and Always. Vitalidad desatada ahora y siempre. ¿Por qué tienes esa? Cuéntame, why is important for you to have those, like, they guide you every day?
I was part of Landmark Education's Power and Global program. And part of that, we we established a slogan, if you will, for our life, where, como mami y papi, ellos hicieron una parte, ¿verdad? Pero ahora me toca a mí para contribuir una parte de mi vida, of my gifts, of my talents, to move something during my lifetime in the unfolding of humanity. So unleashed vitality now and forever is that we're ongoingly rejuvenating ourselves. Even after, like St. Paul, he's one of my favorite saints, he says, you know, we are not, you know, this land, we're not protected from pain and suffering. But what are we going to do with the pain and suffering? And then siendo Latino in a society that has us still locked in an inherited conversation of colonized mindset. And so we behave blindly in practices of isolating ourselves, of competition against ourselves, of, you know, not celebrating who we are. And you know, truth be told, I just realized that recently, where all my certificates, si este parar aquí, would be covered. But ¿a dónde lo tengo? En un drawer, una caja. What is that? I just realized that that was part of my colonized mindset to hamper that down. And so unleashed vitality now and always is right now, right now, right now. How am I unleashing the energies and my gifts, and still not burying? Vitality is about, you cannot only see the energy and the positive, you need to face the lull moments and all of our parts, our anger, our fears, our sadness is just right there. It is part of vitality. So unleashed vitality is embracing all of it now and always, as we're walking through life and being part of the human continuum.
How you feel being the first Latina entrepreneur, the first Latina member of the board of the... I can see that you have a good solid base for your mom and your father, you know, the sense of community, to give up to the community, and the education part, you know, they told you can do it, you know, that's the tell me about how was it for you important to be the first, or take those challenges, you know, to be working with a...
No one says, I didn't raise my hand, oh, I want to be that. No, the community came to me and they said, this was in the early 2000s. And they said, we're looking to have Latinos on the Cleveland School Board. And I said, okay, you know, and they said, no, we really think you should go after it. And so I said, okay. And so yo seguí el paso, and it was an honor. You know, being the first Latina to serve on the Cleveland School Board has been one of my ultimate favorite endeavors. That was very enriching to be able to learn so many things. I became known as board member Santiago, who wanted to see the numbers. You know, don't present to me a strategic plan and you don't have a where we came from to where we're going, and only in lyrics but no numbers. So I became known as the board member who wants to see the numbers. Y también the board member Santiago, board member for the arts. So during my tenure, we infused, because I believe wholeheartedly in the power of arts to exercise all of our brains, not only, but the power of arts and sports, because I went to Baldwin Wallace College on a volleyball scholarship, you know, and so sports and arts are very important in our schools to give our children well-balanced education and mental preparation. But it was an honor. So we infused arts we got up to the 5th grade, right into reading, writing, you know, arithmetic. Art was infused throughout. So, and then I was called to move to Chicago. You know, it just happened. And I had forgotten that I wanted to move to Chicago. I had been there so many times before, but then the opportunity presented itself. And so I lived in Chicago for 13 years and I returned in 2021. But throughout that whole, you know, that whole process, becoming part of the Cleveland School Board's representative on the great council of city schools was also an honor to be able to give voice to our people and our needs. But I also represented the whole district. That's the other thing too. It's interesting. You don't get into these positions you have to be able to, yes, represent the Latino community and the issues and the needs, but also all students. We have tens of thousands of students, not only Latino students. And so that's what I brought to the table, and that's what they saw.
You are an incredible woman, and I would like to see those diplomas there next time I interview you. Tell me about your experience as a certified fundraising executive international. She's the only Latina CFRE in Ohio, but not only that, her record today is 300 million for over 20 organizations in a variety of industries within Ohio, Illinois, Washington, D.C., Michigan, and Ethiopia. Tell me about that experience and how it was for you to take that, the challenge.
I've always, de chiquita, my first job, I sold Avon, I had a paper route. And so for the nonprofit, fundraising is the sales side. For the for-profit, it's sales, and all of that. But for the nonprofit, it's fundraising. And I just had my strength. I'm also a Clifton Strength trained coach, and strategic visioning, maximizing, and futuristic and connectedness. And those are my top four, the top five, and fundraising brings all of them together. What I do is someone has a need, I quickly see the future of their vision or their dream. I connect with them, and then there are resources. There are 6 buckets of money within every organization. Give me a major corporation, I'll find the 6 buckets of money. It just comes at me naturally. So to become a certified fundraising executive you have to meet 136-point metric to be able for them to even send you the application. Then you get the application, you have to complete it for them to even be able to say, yeah, we're going to give you a seat. And at that time, in 2009, there was only 40 seats a year for a 3.5-hour test. And so I was able to get the last one while I was in Chicago, the last seating. I said, whoa, and found out like 3 or 4 days anyway. I know there's a lot of story, but it's quite interesting. And so I sat for it, and I earned the coveted, because when you are in fundraising and someone says CFRE, they say, how did you do that? Please tell us how to get there. But the thing is that you have to demonstrate quantifiably and con los números, how you've raised funding, how you've advanced strategic plans, how you've organized fundraisers, both institutional and individual giving. So my most recent client was the Hispanic Business Center. I was the capital campaign manager for Centro Villa 25. And I was brought in to close their gap. Their goal at that time was 12.8. Of course, in the pandemic post philanthropic era, it rose to about 13 million was their goal. So I was brought in to close 6 million, but we brought in 8.37 million. So and now I don't know if you drive by West 25th and Clark here in Cleveland, you're going to see the building. They just got the keys last week. Wow. And they're getting ready they're going to have a groundbreaking grand opening in November. But my very first one that kicked off my business, because I am a consultant since 2004, was Esperanza here in Ohio, is the educational mentorship and scholarship program for Latinos. And at that point in 2004, and it was Sister Alicia Alvarado, she, people in Cleveland know her, may she rest in peace, but she's the one who grabbed me from the alley when I was a Latina. She was the founder of Latina Estrellas youth group at San Juan Bautista Church. And and she says, Gladys, we need your help. We need your help to raise money for Esperanza. And I said, okay. And I had already been in the field raising money and organizing programs, helping organize 4 of the Hispanic Convention. The next one is coming in September 25th, September 21st here in Cleveland. But I had helped organize the initial 4. And she says, we need help with Esperanza because United Way wanted to strip them of funding. And so we came in, the community rallied, we got the United Way to reconsider the decision. And I created a $2.4 million pipeline of funding within 6 months. And they're still strong today. And I know the executive director is getting ready to retire and whatnot, but you know, it's something, the 300 million for 27, 28 organizations now are 95% Latino organizations in Ohio, Chicago, Washington, DC. You know, Ethiopia was last year as well. That was a phenomenal organization there. And I continue to do that. So from 2004 with Esperanza all the way up to now, wrapping up Central Villa. And I'm like, who's next? Who's next? Because see, the other thing too about Unleash Vitality Now and Always is so why do I do that, right? Because it's needed. One of the questions now in the application for grants is not only the sustainability question, like how are you going to sustain your program or scale it? And not only the question of DE&I, diversity, inclusion, and equity and inclusion. But there's interesting new question on application saying, what will happen if you don't get this funding? It's a very interesting question, right? But that's a new question on the grants anymore. And or they ask, what is your opinion of what's going on in the philanthropic community? And so one of the things that I found, again, considering I've done this since 2004, actually beforehand, because, you know, 2004, I was able to launch into my own Unitivity consultancy, United Creativity, Unitivity, and was that I challenged these organizations to support and fund a study showing how Latino organizations, how have Latino organizations demonstrated their frugal use, their concentrated, calculated use of the limited resources that have been given to us. And I tell you, and I have the data, that we have done more and served more of our community with less. And I'm going to say this, yo no tengo pelo la lengua, como decimos, you know, it's a fact. We have done more and delivered more than those organizations receiving lots of money. I guarantee it. But we are exhausted and we are overwhelmed.
Do you feel like we are overwhelmed because sometimes we get tired of fighting?
Yeah.
Or we
Yes.
get easily, or well, I don't think it's easily because we never.
We always have to educate. We always have to be educating about ourselves. We always, you know, vamos a llegar a un punto, I think, yeah, con los números, right? Because the numbers are apparent in Ohio and the Midwest. Latinos are the only number that's growing. And now that listen, Central Villa was 40 years in the making. And so right now, why is it now happening? Because the numbers can no longer be ignored.
I agree with
and
you.
we had to educate to a tune of about $22 million to net the 13 million to finally have the groundbreaking and have that. So we're exhausted. But so are my sisters. So are my sisters and brothers in the African American community of having to educate. We have to continually educate. And I remember
share your story, because I can see the importance of education, to have to go back to the community, to understand that they have challenges, but you are understand the numbers. The numbers, I always tell that to my daughter, numbers are very important. And we as a Latina, we talk about numbers. People listen to us, don't you think?
Yeah, and more so than anything, that's part of the colonized programming. Like we have to over-assert ourselves. We have to over-demonstrate, and it's exhausting. And that's where I'm going to lead right into my book, Overcoming Mediocrity, Limitless Women, #1 bestseller in 4 categories. And it shared my story, on 2016 or so, I almost took myself out. You know, I was just I was exhausted by all of it and so many other things going on. And including I'm 61, so I was in the midlife crisis. And Mami murió a los 55, you know, and
Ay, qué
she,
joven. Too
yes,
young.
and in the book I share, this is dedicated to my mother because she didn't know what she was going through, and they didn't talk about it, you know, and la hermana de ella, you know, dentro de ella, they didn't know what they were going through with midlife, and mom was caught right there. Mom was caught in with her own issues and whatnot as she succumbed to breast cancer. So in my book, I share the data that Latinas suffer more deaths and disease when they reach midlife than any other demographic, and that cannot be sustained. And so what I realized, a couple things in writing my book, is the trauma that we have all inherited and then experienced ourselves. So we have inherited trauma from our indigenous to the colonization to our slave. You know, my grandfather was, if you see him, you think he was African American, but he is African, you know, de Puerto Rico. Nosotros somos tres sangre, you know, españoles, indígena, taína, yo soy taína también, y también de África. And so all of that all of that trauma has been passed down, whether the behaviors has been to protect us from society. You know, it's still an inherited conversation that we live out today. And so mom reached that point, and I almost took myself out because I was exhausted, you know, just trying to, you tell me to go get education, I go do that. You tell me to get this, I go do that. You tell me to go this, I go do that. And still faced with predatory practices, you know, having my car repossessed when I only was back by 1 month. Ellos tenían que cortarme un cheque. Chase had to cut me a check, you know, because they did that wrongfully. And so, pero yo pienso en todas las personas que no pueden expresarse y no pueden defenderse, you know, and I'm going to say it right here, when Kamala Harris, cuando ella dijo en el DNC in her speech, cuando ella dijo que yo me presento cada vez en frente del juez in the courtroom, y ella nunca dijo, yo represento el cliente, el nombre del cliente. Ella siempre abría con, yo represento la gente. I represent the people of, porque ella sabía que si este ser querido está sufriendo lo que está sufriendo, hay mil más detrás de esta persona que lo está sufriendo. And so she represents the people. And it's not only one person, she's representing all of us. And so I just like resonated so strongly with that because I feel the same way. And so with Latinas, we can no longer sustain that our mothers, our aunts, our older sisters are succumbing to disease at midlife. So then I established You're Like Rocks. And You're Like Rocks is a program that actually uses the Clifton strengths. The premise is, are you operating from your strengths and mitigating your weaknesses to sing your song in life? You're already going to make a contribution because that's why you're here. But if you're not operating from your innate strengths, then you're going to be floundering. And so last Saturday, I had the honor of attending the Latina Image Award sponsored by Julia de Burgos. This is the culmination of a 6-month-long leadership development program for Latinas aged 13 to 17. And they go on stage, and it's not a pageant, it is a talent demonstration of their talent and their dreams and their hopes for the future. And I'm 61, and I'm sitting there and I'm seeing this beautiful, you know, and Leticia, who's one of the graduates of my program, You're Like Rocks, and I'm crying. I'm like, and I was so proud, but I was also saying, you've just begun. Nana, you've only just begun. And I could not, I'm being authentic here. If you cannot be authentic, then you cannot share your story and people will not hear you. But I'm being authentic when I kept looking at them, and I was so proud. At the same time, I was like, oh my God, they must be sustained. Desde ahora, from now 13 until they're 95, they must be sustained to continue to unleash vitality now and always? What is it to be complete right now? What is it to say, okay, eso me ocurrió, pero it's not the end of the world. Who do I need to bring in my circle? ¿Con quién tú andas? Dime con quién tú andas, yo diré quién eres. Are you, maybe it's time. In my book, I have a free giveaway, which is one of the questions is, dime con quién tú andas, yo diré quién eres. Who do you have to now cut off your life? That's siphoning that, or who do you have to write off? Maybe a dear John or dear Juan or dear Juana letter to get rent-free out of your mind. Who's living rent-free in your mind that's no longer around that you need to wash away? And there's some people who you just need to cut it off. Pero you also need the support of knowing how to do that, because we don't know how to do that. You know, we will suffer it. I just had a client and very demeaning and very disrespectful. And I said, mira, ante, before I know what I know, I'm speaking now, hindsight, ¿verdad? Pero ante, I would have suffered that fool. I don't suffer fools anymore. And I said, if in the third contract, él sigue hablando negativo or not treating me like a businesswoman that I am, then you know what, I'm cutting the cord. And I did, you know, so you need to define for yourself, when is enough enough? And shine, you're like rocks, shine.
What is the next project? Because you are a writer, you just won awards, you just create rocks. I just see you nonstop.
Well, in my book, I say
information.
That, Señor, God said it's time for you to return to Cleveland. I have 3 grandchildren. I have a son who's 36 and 3 grandchildren, and it wasn't them that brought me back. Although I love being here and really adding value to their life, because we would always see each other every year. You know, they would spend summers with me, so it wasn't that. But God said, I need for you to. He just downloaded in me the Illumination Center for Latinas. And I want you to go to Cleveland, get it started. Now, when is that going to happen? How is it going to happen? Because eso también requiere dinero, ¿verdad? Y todo eso, y todo esfuerzo. Pero there's many organizations or many, quite a few things happening with Latinas here. So we need to get together. We need to get together to get this done. There's Latina Image Award, and we need to support them. We need to support them. That's 13 to 17. There's mentorship programs at Esperanza, but when I was the National Conference of Puerto Rican Women's president for seven of the 10 years that we had a chapter here, but they still have a chapter in Chicago, who, by the way, Kamala Harris met with, you know, and so. And I was the first VP in Washington, D.C. for the National Conference of Puerto Rican Women. And so we need to continue that. If that's my tribe, you know, everyone needs to unleash vitality now and always. You pick a segment of society that you wish to really make an impact. And Latinas is my tribe, so that they experience smooth transition through every phase of their life, so that they experience midlife not as a crisis, but as a rite of passage. So I'm working on that, but right now I'm also working on the Latin American Historical Society of Cleveland, because our histories are not being captured. They're being told by people who are writing papers, you know, on history, and then they submit them to Case Western, pero no es la historia por la voz de nosotros.
Una sola lado de la historia, y nosotros somos parte de la historia también, ¿no?
And so right now, that's what I'm working on. I'm working on the Latin American Historical Society of Cleveland with Dr. Evelyn Rivera, and a whole team of us are committed to capturing the oral history of our community and making sure that it's archived properly. And that's what I'm working on right now. So that and Your Light Rocks.
Could you please send a message to the Latinas that we are celebrating your leadership, your story in this Hispanic Heritage Month?
You're not by yourself. You cannot, one of a leader, because I bring in Valerie Alo's Uncolonized Latina. I bring that into my Your Light Rocks program as well, and begin to dismantle that we are in this by ourselves. No, look around you. How have you naturally, attracted dentro de usted una comunidad para criar los nenes, para criar, to take care of yourself? Check now if you got the right people now. You got to have, if they're not elevating you and you elevating them, if they're gossip, if you're not, gossip is when you don't elevate the next person, but if you don't elevate the next person, then you're gossiping, which
Are
is
you
not,
writing
and
them?
I know el bochinche line is alive and well, but make sure the bochinche is good bochinche, okay? You're not by yourself. Everything you need is in your community. And hope, be anchored to hope. Be anchored to hope. Don't let go of hope. Don't try to do it by yourself. And if you need help, please do not depress. Society wants you to depress. That
Stay there.
I'm supposed to be individualized and I'm supposed to be advancing here and I'm supposed to be, no. Listen, I just went through a bout with cancer and I'm clean now. But God said, stop. You need to stop, and I stopped. And I created a team, therapist, homeopathic doctor, physician, everybody, a team. And now I'm cancer-free. I could not have done that by myself. And listen, you got to listen to the whisper. God is whispering, whoever your universal, whoever you lean on, and find someone to lean on. You have to find a universal strength, a spiritual, your soul needs that. Listen to the whispers because they keep coming back. When you're 65, when you're 55, when you're 75, when you're 25, when you're 20, the same message is coming at you. You're supposed to be doing this. You're supposed to, this is what I need. Whatever that little whisper is, pay attention to it, because that is the gift that you're meant here to contribute to the world. But sometimes you do have to stop though. Like I had to, you had to stop because you'll keep, the program is to keep you going like this and distract you, like your devices. Come on, those devices are distractors, like put it down and really hone in and start reading. You gotta read memoirs that had it worse than you so that you don't suffer and have a pity party, but you got, I just want to say thank you, Lorena. I know that you're highly thought of, and I know we worked on Latinos last year, and thank you very much for doing this. I didn't know that you did this. See, this is another platform that I didn't even know existed out
I have
there.
more than 1,000 interviews. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.